Shout out to Full Moon. Shout out to Full Moon. The Planning and Zoning Committee meeting for June 24th, 2025 is called to order at 6:40 p.m. We're going to start with a moment of silent meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call?
Roll call, Chair Nickerson,
Here.
Vice Chair Martin,
Present.
Member Erbaum,
Present.
Member Lightfoot Ward, Member Winters.
Present.
Also present for the record, Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk, Christia Alou, Village Manager, and Attorney Geller's running late.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Martin. Do I have a second? Second by Member Lightfoot Ward. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Member Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Erbaum. Was that Member Erbaum?
Yes.
Okay, Member Erbaum. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing none. Moving right along. Moving on to the agenda items. Madam Clerk, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because this is a committee meeting, it's not a hearing, we don't have to do the swearing in, right?
You do not, you're correct.
Yeah, so we can just go. And we don't have to
Correct.
turn together for that. All right, so let's just jump in. Ms. Hammonds, if you want to come to the podium for us, please. Agenda item number 1 is 8850 Northeast 4th Avenue Garage Conversion. Are the clients here?
I personally have never met them before, so I couldn't verify, but it doesn't seem like
Okay,
anybody's
but
standing
everything
up.
was sent out to them, correct? The
Yes.
notification, everything was
Yes,
sent
yes,
out
yes,
to
they
them?
knew of the meeting for sure.
All right, well, tell us about this item.
Absolutely, yes.
and recommendation.
The applicant tonight is Ariel Ichak, and she's requesting a variance approval for a garage enclosure at 8850 Northeast 4th Avenue. This is a lot that is made up of 6,850 square feet. And it contains a house of 1,566 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 bath. It's 1 story in height, and this house was built in 1971. The enclosure is for the purpose of creating a living room. The garage door will be replaced by a single window, which is compatible in style with the home's existing windows. The existing driveway will accommodate 1 vehicle, and in addition, there is a legal non-conforming paved area that's in the swale. It can also accommodate 2 cars. Staff is recommending for approval of this garage conversion with the condition that parking in the swale is prohibited except for where it's already paved area, and that all future driveway modifications will comply with the code driveway standards and including lot coverage, maximums, and driveway approach sizes.
All right, thank you.
Again, this is recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. We have approval, but we have conditions with that approval. So if this were to pass through the committee, we have to pass it with the conditions. And I am accepting the staff report for the record, in the record. And council or committee, do we have any questions or comments? You guys go ahead.
I just have one question for the applicants, and that's just to know if they have any plans for doing anything with the driveway in the future, or in the near future,
Not that I
not to
know of.
project-
It's kind of been a standard since we had that 1 variance come through, because that was a garage conversion that gave them, very limited outdoor parking, and that was kind of the reason why they didn't comply with the code, and they came in after the fact, if you recall, and got a variance. So I'm kind of putting that out there in the beginning.
And
that
did you spend time with the applicant?
I did not myself.
Okay.
No, Kimberly did.
Okay, so I just have one remaining question, and that's,
Okay.
yeah, just for the applicant, so.
Thank you very much.
Oh, so sorry. If you want to ask it of me, we can get that answer
Yeah, it's just,
before the
sure,
next meeting.
thank you,
Okay.
yeah, it's a super simple question, and that's
Okay.
simply, I would like to, I would like to know that they feel comfortable, that they understand this, this condition. and-
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's just a little bit convoluted if you're encountering it for the first time.
Sure.
And so-
Or the reason why.
Right, so
we're
I would just,
asking
I
that.
would just want to know that they feel comfortable, that they understand.
Okay,
That's it. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll
yeah.
make sure that we address that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's keep in mind, you guys, and I'm gonna let the rest of the council, committee, if you guys wanna say anything. Just keep in mind, if this fails today, it's kind of dead on arrival. If it does pass through to the full council, then we can ask them there if they accept the conditions. If we see a problem with that, we can vote against it at the full council meeting, or we can stop it here and it'll be dead here, so either way. But if you want to give them a chance, we can pass it with the conditions that were suggested by the Corradino Group, and then at the council meeting, if those questions aren't satisfied or if we have a problem with it, we can kill it then at the council meeting. All right, just keep that in mind. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Yes.
Why are we doing this if we got that many things to be considered? What you just said.
Well, I mean, what's making it hard, it's not that many things, but what's making it hard is that the client's not here to answer the questions. So I'm just saying, you know, if we vote against it today, then it's just dead. But if we do pass it through with the conditions that were suggested by the Corradino Group, then it stays alive, and then at the council meeting, we can ask these same questions,
Yeah.
and then if it's not to our satisfaction, then we can vote it down if we choose to. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
What's the motion on the table?
There's no motion yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to the audience, and then I'll come back to the committee, and then we can go from there. All right, hearing no more questions or comments from the committee, are there any questions or comments from the residents, the audience? If you have any questions or comments, you can come up and say your name and address for the record, and you can ask your question or make your comment. All right, seeing none. Back to the committee. So we have a recommendation, which is approval with conditions that were laid out by the Corradino Group. We can either do a motion of approval with those conditions, a motion of approval just straight up with no conditions, or we don't have to make a motion, it could be denied. So do I have a motion, any type of motion from the committee?
I'll move to approve with recommendations
Move
as outlined by Corradino Group.
Move to approve with recommendations outlined by the Corradino Group by Member Urban. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Vice Chair Martin. Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call, please?
Roll call. Member Winters,
Yes.
Member Urban,
Yes.
Member Lightfoot Ward.
Make me last.
Huh?
Make me last.
No,
The last is the chair.
yeah.
No.
Okay. Vice Chair Martin,
Yes.
Chair Nickerson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Ms. Hammonds, if I were you and, or not if I were you, but, you and Ms. Barua might want to reach out to the client and say it behooves them to show
Okay.
up to the council meeting.
I understand.
Yeah.
And yeah, make
Yeah.
that a point. All right, so we're moving on, you guys, to the next agenda item. This is 183 Northeast 89th Street. Are there clients here? How you guys doing? Can you come up to this?
Well, I must be got the wrong one. Mine says 176.
Let's see.
If
Oh,
you
that's
guys
for the
want to.
regular.
It's up to
We're
you.
in planning, and zoning. This is
Yeah.
the regular council meeting later.
So
We're in
what's
the
he
planning and
looking at?
zoning at 6:30 here. I got it right now. Yeah, this one.
This one
yeah.
right here?
There we go. Okay.
That's the same as this, right?
Planning and zoning. Yeah, this is the next meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I love a little sample.
These are, this is the exterior finishes, I know you guys don't like to see, but these are the exterior.
All right, while we're doing that, Ms. Hammonds, you want to just kind of introduce
Absolutely.
this item?
The applicant tonight is Mariana Huang, is requesting a site plan approval for construction of a new residence at 183 Northeast 89th Street. The site currently consists of one lot totaling 107 square feet and currently is developed with one single-family home which was built in 1940, and it is planned to be demolished to construct this new two-story residence, which features a contemporary design within a lush landscape garden with many mature trees, some existing to remain or be relocated on site. The two-story home will be 2,278 square feet. The new home will have five bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and one car carport. The proposed design is for a new residence, represents a contemporary architecture style. The proportions and scale of the residence are compatible with the neighborhood. Approval is recommended for this new construction of a two-story residence.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Forgive me. What's the lot coverage? I see it. I'm here. I got it.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
I'd like to, he had something to say earlier, and I'd like to hear it again in front of everyone about the gentleman who designed the architectural plans and he wants to live there. Can you give me the story again? Thank you.
I wanted to emphasize that the client is one that actually designed.
Point of order. Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I do.
Okay. I wanted to emphasize that this is a passion project for the client. He's the one that actually did the design and the landscape design. Better? Whoop.
Yeah, you
Okay.
gotta talk in the mic.
There we go.
Yeah.
One more time.
Okay.
I would like to emphasize that this project is a passion project of the client's, okay? He actually did the design, he did the landscape design. My role is as project architect to make sure that everything is to code in conformance with the zoning. I believe he did a beautiful job. He did a contemporary design, but he was very careful to make it very warm and use contemporary but more organic materials. He was very careful to preserve as many trees as he could. Trees that were in the way, he did his best to relocate them. And this is a house that him and his family want to live in, and they want to be a part of the El Portal community. And it's been his dream to build his own house, and I was very happy to be a part of that. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Member Winters, you have anything you want to add?
I'd like to know about which trees are they relocating?
If you look at, can you look at L? So, there's some smaller on-site trees that are being relocated, but as far as bigger type trees, there's a mango that's in the back of the property. And in the front of the property, in the right of way, we want to relocate that existing tree. The large one? The large one, we're going to relocate it. Now, we were actually submitted to Miami. Can't put it where we want, we have to.
You're relocating the large tree to the other side of the property? Is that what you said?
Approach? So this existing tree here, we want to move it here, but Miami-Dade told us that it might get in the way of the visibility triangles, so we're gonna move it here. Yeah, we're just gonna move it to the left. Can it be here with the other one over here? I don't think so. No, I mean, it's kind of, they're kind of already. Gorgeous tree, if you ever drive by there.
Irvine,
That's why he wants to preserve it.
you gonna melt. You gonna melt.
Are there any other questions?
All right. Anything else from the
So-
committee?
Yeah, just, so he designed his home and is moving into it. And I imagine this is the goal of moving into this home is to be there for a while. Now, I'm just curious, is this something like where they want to retire to, or is this simply, this is my dream home for now, or I'm just curious?
Yeah, Mari?
Yeah,
Yeah, this one.
yeah.
We know you. Yeah, we know you.
Yeah, hi,
Hi.
I'm Marina. Well, I guess I'd just like to start to say by saying thank you for considering my project. And that we actually have been interested in this neighborhood for a long time. I bought the house maybe more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and loved it. And we just finally had this opportunity to be able to build a house, and it's been my husband's dream to build his own house. He's studied architecture. And so, yeah, we plan to stay for, I mean, of course, we don't know, but my son will be going to junior high, hopefully around the time that, you know, if this all moves forward. And so then it would be, you know, 6, 10.
So I know it's a bit of a personal question. I will explain the reason for the question. So 5'4", right? Honestly, the footprint looks great, considering, you know, like you put it to the max to 39%, but it doesn't feel massive.
Yeah.
So when we hear 5'4", we're sitting there thinking, oh man, okay, is this gonna be an entertainment property for short-term rentals? Is this gonna be,
Oh,
you
no,
know?
no.
So, and again, it's not that we could be prohibitive about that. However, when it comes to square footage of the property or the outright mass of the property,
Therein is the question.
my questioning becomes, okay, is this going to be an entertainment property, or is this for someone who's going to live in it? And so, again, not that we could even technically be prohibitive about that, but to understand the need for such a large property, right? Now, I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I need a 6-bedroom house. We've got a 3-bedroom house, so you know, totally get that. But that's basically just the
Okay.
questioning. So
Yeah, no, it's for us to live in,
yeah.
and I have parents that come to town, they live in Colorado, they try to come often, and so we need space for them. And then our other guests, you know, family, just to make it a comfortable stay so we can all stay together,
okay,
yeah.
So,
Can I add that the 39% includes a future rear pavilion for like a barbecue type area?
Okay.
That's future though. So the
Okay.
actual house is under, you know, the actual house and then the driveway and all that is actually under the 39%.
Okay.
That's including a barbecue area.
I want to thank you for bringing the materials today to look at. I do have a question though, and a little bit of a concern. So looking at this, looks beautiful. I love the foliage here. You guys did really what Albertal stands for. It's lots of trees, lots of plants. But of course, that brings a lot of shade. The stucco that's basically very rough and rounded out over there, I saw a lot of caverns inside of it. And I think about all the darkness it's going to have, the amount of algae and green spots over time. I just want you to realize you're going to have a lot more maintenance on that. Because we have code here in El Portal that states that you have that start growing in the house, you're going to be cited. And because you're going to have those little tiny
Yeah.
crevices and little green spots or black spots you're going to have to use pressure
Pressure
cleaning
wash.
all the time on that house, on that section, because you're allowing a space for that algae to grow.
Okay.
But so if you build it this way, just remember, it's going to be a lot more maintenance.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Seeing, hearing none. Any comments or questions from the audience about this particular project? All right, seeing, hearing none. Coming back to the committee, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Martin. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Member Winters. Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call, please?
Roll call. Member Winters. Member Erbaum.
yes.
Member Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Vice Chair Martin.
Yes.
Chair Nickerson.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 to
Thank you
none.
very much. Let's remember, you guys, that,
Yes.
Ms. Hammond, did you explain to them about the sign? And,
was just
okay,
telling
all
us.
right, yeah, make sure that we have that down. And that's that for that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. See you guys at the
Thank you
council
so
meeting,
much.
future council meeting coming up. You guys, before we go to good and welfare, Attorney Geller, I passed you guys out a sheet of paper, a few sheets of paper, because Attorney Geller was working on an ordinance that he wanted on this meeting. I pulled it from this meeting because I felt like the ordinance wasn't prepared, but Attorney Geller is a little upset about it. I don't know if he wants to speak on it. So go ahead, Attorney Geller. Before he speaks on it, let me just say this. The reason why, if you guys look at this, the reason why I pulled this from this particular committee meeting was because if you look at the ordinance is the one that has like the yellow
Right,
yellow highlight on it.
yes.
So this is in regards to, last council meeting last month, we spoke about the whole thing with the hardship and all that type of stuff. So he wanted this ordinance on this particular agenda in the Planning and Zoning Committee in response to that. And this right here, the reason why it's not on the committee is because the reason why I felt like it's not ready is because this right here only discusses it discusses lowering the variance. If you look at the third whereas,
Yes.
down to 350. And if you look at the rest of it, it's just all about the fee. But my point is that where is the procedure? And when this first came across, which you guys see the email when I was sent this, you guys have that also. When this first came across, I asked everybody in that meeting, well, if it has a procedure, then I'll put it through. And they told me, yeah, well, it has a procedure. And then I got sent it, and it just talks about the amount. So the amount, if we're gonna lower the amount of a variance for, hardship or whatever we're gonna call it, fine, the amount is there that we wanna lower it to, but what is the process? That's like me saying, I'm gonna create a product that costs $5. And you're like, but Mayor, what's the product? I'm like, don't worry about it because at least we know it's gonna be $5. So is the process for a hardship, to prove that you will be granted a hardship, you have to show us I'm just making stuff up out of the air right now. You have to show us your last year tax return. You have to show us your current bank statement. You have to show us what is the process to prove that a hardship should even exist? I think that has to be spelled out first, or at the same time, simultaneously with the amount. That's fine. We know that, or they're suggesting that the amount should be $350 instead of $1,000 for a variance for those who can't afford the $1,000. That's fine. But we need to have the discussion first or simultaneously if a hardship should even exist. We might decide as a council that we don't even agree that it should exist. And if we agree that it should exist, what is the process? That was my question. What is the process to decide who gets a hardship and who doesn't? What do they have to show us? Or is it that people just show up and they say, hey, I can't afford to pay it, and we're like, oh, okay. Like, what's the process? How do we decide it? And that's the number one question that I have, and I think that should be answered and taken care of at the same time that this is, and then they'll be on the agenda. Attorney Gill.
Okay, and to some degree, when we get to the appropriate point, I'm gonna defer to our planner who helped with the initial draft of this and had some more to offer. Does everybody have it in front of them?
No.
Okay. There are a number of whereas clauses.
Everybody has
Whereas-
it in front of them. Everybody has that.
Yeah, he nodded, yeah. So there's a number of whereas clauses that talk about the fact that what it is, the whereas clauses, by the way, are incorporated. So it talks about what the current fees are and that we're considering trying to provide for low-income residents. And that's mentioned in the third whereas clauses. And low income is a defined term when you're referring to housing. Low-income housing is something that's defined both in the state and the county. So if, specifically, turning to Section 2 grant, and there was some internal disagreement among staff, but that's really up to the council, not up to us. The manager, frankly, is not, I'll let her speak for herself, but not too happy with this idea. The original proposal from Ms. Hammonds didn't specify a number. I thought the amount of $350 was too high, but in the interest of getting something in front of you, we compromised and came up with $350. Now, originally, I had talked about putting this direct onto first reading, but someone said, no, it has to run through P&Z first. So that's why I wanted to be sure that at least came to you so there could be a discussion. And if there are additional guidelines that you want to see, we can certainly insert those for first reading of the ordinance before the council, but not if you don't talk about it. So this, what we agreed on was that we would present to the council the amount of $350. We would compensate for that by not raising garage enclosures, which will continue to be $700, but we would raise the variance rate because our costs are greater for other kinds of things to $1,000, and that would and for commercial to $2,000, that would offset the reduction for low-income residents. What this says, and again, Section 2, variances for residents who meet the low-income requirement are. Now, we're not using the word hardship. Hardship, we all agreed, is confusing because when you grant a variance, the standard for whether you grant a variance is whether there is a hardship that's imposed by the application of our code to that property. So hardship is the standard to approve the variance. If we also use the word hardship to talk about people who are financially challenged and can't afford it, we're going to confuse the language we're using because hardship would then have two different meanings. So we decided the standard for approving a variance, which is not being changed in any way by this grant. There may be some standards changed when we get to the council meeting and we look at the proposal that has to do with different new materials, but that's for granting a variance. This is not for granting a variance. This is strictly for if someone says they're not financially able to really pay, and so we're not calling that hardship, financial hardship, because again, it's confusing. So there is a process for determining whether someone meets the requirement of a low income requirement for housing purposes. That's something that is in law, and Ms. Hammond spoke up and said that she in particular was familiar with that process. So at this time, I'd like to defer to her to explain what that process is. But let me just say, the process, if you approve an ordinance, if you approve modifying the amount that someone who meets this low-income threshold has to meet in order to receive that discount, the process is an administrative process. As long as the standard is set that they have to meet this definition of low income for our community and for Miami-Dade County, which again, I'm going to have Ms. Evans explain in a moment, that's done administratively. You set the standard, the actual determination of whether someone qualifies is something that administrative staff does. Ms. Evans.
So thank you. I did prepare a small statement, but just to kind of elaborate a little bit more on the process. In the chart that we have that goes in the code, the section that we would be strike through and underline, We have a little bit of defining how we would determine and how people could apply. We would most likely need to come up with some sort of form so they can, we can get all the information, they could understand exactly what they need to submit. But essentially, we would limit this to residents, obviously of El Portal. The low-income qualifications would be based on what the county would yearly update, the average medium income calculations. And residents we would limit it to, my suggestion is to limit it to residents that could qualify to have this opportunity only one time per calendar year. And
You can look, by the way, excuse me for interrupting, if you look on the appendix, on page 2 of the appendix, the paragraph there does help explain it a little bit at the bottom.
That's right. And then they would, actually apply, fill out a form, submit the information that we would be requesting. I would suggest tax returns, bank statements, and pay stubs. And that could be enough evidence that we could understand truly what their income is. And then we cross-check that with what the Miami-Dade County would consider low income. And that's yearly updated. So then we have a point of reference, and if they're qualified as low income, then we would proceed with allowing them to have the reduced fee.
And just to continue, that talks about what it is. The council's role is to say if this is something you want to do, and if there are general guidelines. So the form is not something that would, the council would write. The form is administrative. But this is only the first of 3 times that you would be seeing this. So again, if there are additional guidelines, or if there's anything additional you want to see, if you want to change something, again, this proposal is it can only be used once a year. I was talking about, and you may want to consider some language that says that that's for variances, whether it's once a year or twice a year. That would be for variances that are homeowner initiated. But there would be an exception to whether it's 1 or 2 or whatever it is, an exception if it's something that the homeowner is seeking as a result of village enforcement action. If the village code enforcement cites you and says you're out of compliance because of something you did wrong or whatever it is, then we want that process to take place. We want to have people come into compliance and not have them, the fact that they might not be able to pay a fee or a full fee, keep them from being in compliance. So there could be a carve-out that said it's once a year, twice a year, whatever, some very low number, except for variances that are initiated in response to a village citation that says they're out of compliance, and this is their way of trying to come into compliance. But with that, I would just say to you that if you were to pass this with any discussion or any instructions or any guidelines or whatever terms, I mean, before we're done, I think you may want to hear from the manager about why she has some concerns about this from a budget standpoint before you vote. But regardless, whatever you do is something that we will use if there need to be changes, and if you want to see more or you want to have particular clarity on something, we can do that before first reading, much less on second reading.
I would like to add a few things, and thank you, Attorney Geller and Ms. Hammonds, because I know you did a lot of work on this. I understand what the will of the council is in terms of making some variances more accessible to those who are not able to, pay a full fee. But from the administrative perspective, I also want to call to your attention that, you know, Cap Government and Corradino Group are contractors of the village. We pay them. And so with that, Corradino Group makes $230 to $215 an hour based on their contract with us. To lower a rate for variances where you can use it 1 to 2 times a year annually, the policing of that or the monitoring of that, the administration of all of that, including the work that comes with the variance, also comes at a price that then the village is then responsible for. And, you know, our budget doesn't go up very much annually. So we have a lot of directions we're being pulled on for a few extra dollars that we get each budget cycle. So I want you to just bear that portion in mind. And also to think about the fact that if someone's not able to get a variance, if they aren't able to afford it, then they probably aren't going to be able to afford the work that needs to be done as well. So then I've supplied you a list from Mr. Martinez of some acceptable forms of roofing material, because I know this was initiated from a roofing matter with a resident. There are some higher priced items, there are some lower priced. But I will get into more detail with Mr. Martinez when he returns. I had wanted him to be here tonight to kind of discuss that, but he wasn't able to because he had a family emergency and had to leave the country, but he'll be back next week. So we'll get more detail about that. The other part to think about is the building permits that will then come from this. You know, are we also lowering the price for that? And then again, with Cap Government, these are contractors, and at the end of the day, the fee is going to fall on the village. I know that we want to make things accessible and just make it a little bit easier for our residents, but I just want you to bear in mind the cost to the village itself and our administration.
And just to follow that up, that's the reason why, although the original impetus was just to provide a very reduced fee, and again, I thought maybe we could even go lower, but there's a net budgetary impact, and so what we thought would be the way to try to offset that was to keep garage conversions, which are very simple, at 700, but raise other variances to 1,000, raise commercial to 2,000, and that hopefully between those, they would end up not even just balancing, but hopefully end up with a greater amount of net revenue to the village from those higher fees to offset those people that would actually qualify for the low income. Again, we don't call it hardship, please remember. That would qualify for the low income. If we found after 4 months or 6 months that we were getting a lot of discounts and not raising the revenue that we need based on the increased fees for other kinds of permits, we could change the amount of the low-income discount, or we could raise in some fashion the other fees that we're charging. You can come back and change that any time, basically, by ordinance, and you could be flexible, and you'd have to monitor it to make sure that the discounts were not overwhelming the increase in fees. So with that, you know, we just need some direction for what else you might like to see, because however you want it to look, we'd like to be able to bring it back for first reading.
Anybody else from the council or
Yeah.
committee?
So one of the first things I think of when I see this is that variance for Z4 and Z5, this would not solve our problem, because what I'm trying to accomplish is to make it prohibitive, but I think that should be at like 6,000. I think that we should be fighting almost any variance that comes out of Z4 or Z5 aggressively from this dais, and not allow almost any commercial variances whatsoever. Now, outside of that, the plan sounds reasonable in terms of offset. We are in a transition period in the village. We have new money coming in, and it tends to be bigger money, not smaller money. We have new money coming into this village. So the highest priced piece of real estate in Miami-Dade County just sold for $108 million freaking dollars as the crow flies, what, 4 miles from here? All right? El Portal is a small village. We don't have a team of lawyers. We have a target on our back, and people are looking to absolutely 100% take advantage of that situation. And everybody on this dais needs to be up for that and understand what is coming in terms of a tsunami of people who've never heard the word no before. I personally have very little respect for people who've never heard the word no before. They tend to not be good long-term or people with a lot of foresight. My experience serving them for 25 years is to say no firmly and often and explain over and over again in a very redundant way. The answer is no. But very few people have the spine to do that, to be perfectly honest. So, as I look at this, do we have a need for this? I think we do. We owe it to every resident, regardless of who they are, to create an environment in this village where they can live and be free, right? Our older residents, our more long-term residents, do not have the bank accounts that the newer residents have. Yet, we owe them just as much as a resident with a large bank account in terms of their ability to enjoy their property. I think this is a good solution. Now, if we want to argue about the numbers, I think that's all right. Where it stands, ultimately, I think that I feel that this is a good plan. The discrepancy in terms of what the process is, I kind of do agree with the mayor on this, that we should have that organized ahead of time. However, the paragraph that Attorney Geller pointed to at the bottom of the second page of the appendix does outline pretty substantially what the process would be. So, I would like to go ahead with this, and I think by the time we get to a vote in a second reading, we would have a process outlined. But as it stands, I think this is a reasonable plan, a decent plan, a well thought out plan, and something that could benefit many of our residents and allow them to keep living here as long as they wish.
Anyone else from the committee?
All right. So I have a few questions here. From what I understand is this ordinance that we are suggesting will create a $350 variance flat fee for low-income residents, but most of the other variances will go up in price. Is this correct?
Yes.
Except for garage conversions, which we decided were simple enough that they would stay at 700. But again, nothing here is carved in stone. It's
Yeah.
what you want. This is just to give you something to talk about, even as far as adding more process if that's what you want.
Okay. So I'm just trying to understand all of what's going on. We basically, council created an ordinance that doesn't allow shingles, which created this hardship for this person. And then, because this person has a hardship, we're now going to fine other residents more money so that they can offset it and pay the Corodino group. And we're considering that a fair alternative?
Not.
Hardship, again, is probably a misleading word.
Did I say hardship? I thought I said low income. Apologize if I did.
We're talking about a way, it's not limited to roofs or shingles or anything, and you're separately discussing in your council meeting whether or not you're gonna permit other materials. That you're addressing separately. But for any resident who's seeking a variance, apparently from what was heard and what you asked us to put together, look, you don't have to do anything. But you asked us to put together, so something for your consideration. So the manager and the planner and I talked about it, so we could put something in front of you for you to decide. If the way it looks doesn't look like something you think should be done, then you can decide not to move forward. But if you want something that makes it more achievable for low-income residents to be able to still get variances when necessary and to increase accessibility to them, the manager raised the point that we don't have the margin to just absorb that out of current revenue, that if we're gonna cut the revenue here, that we've gotta raise it over here to balance it. I mean, for instance, based on Councilman Urban's point, you wouldn't have to raise any fees at all on residents if you wanted to only limit it, the increase to fees for commercial enterprises and to raise those more substantially. But the question would be, do we really have enough of those? I mean, for a bit of hyperbole, you could raise the commercial fee to $1 million for a variance, and you'd only need one. But if one didn't come along, it wouldn't do you much good. So, I mean, if you raised it to 5 or 6 or whatever, that might have appropriate other consequences, such as Councilperson Urban referred to. It might have other effects in terms of chilling certain types of commercial activity. But if it didn't happen much, and you had a lot of people who were able to qualify for the low income discount, you might find that it still was bleeding red ink from the village's finances. So to some degree, you don't really know unless you try something and then see how many discounts come in and how many people pay for commercial. But it does seem that if our initial 700 is really too low anyway for anything other than a garage conversion, you should be raising the base fee even to residents by an amount that more closely reflects the village's cost of processing routine residences, residential variance applications. Then see how many actual discount, not people who want it, but people who end up qualifying for it. That may not be the same thing. So you want to, in some way, you try it and then you try to find the right balance. And, but of course, you don't want to make it unduly difficult for other residents.
Okay, so that was a very thorough explanation, but it doesn't go back to exactly where we're at. What's causing them to have to get a variance? They need to repair the roof. We're just going back to that because we talked about it. Well, why do they need a variance to repair the roof? Well, they can only afford shingle. Why do we need a low income requirement for mandatory things when we create the laws that say, you can't put this on here. You have to pay for the more expensive things. But this is old. We already know the code's outdated. We're going through code amendments right now. We're trying to fix it. There's so many new materials out there for all the different parts, whether for fences, for sides, for even the concrete's changed into epoxies. I mean, there's so many new amazing materials that are not in the code. I think we've restricted ourselves, and by creating this low-income requirement, which basically, it's only gonna be honestly for the things that are like emergency. So no one's gonna really wanna qualify for, like, I need to put up a fence in my front yard, and that's my low-income thing, right? That's a variance, right? So it doesn't make sense to go in this direction. We create the problem, now we're trying to create the solution by finding other people that don't have the problem. Can we maybe find a way around this where we don't need a variance for certain things, like a low-cost roof, or, I don't know, if they have an extra child, they need to do a garage conversion? I mean, without this?
Not just roofs, remember, it's for a number of things. And that's one of the things I suggested. I think I'm on. Okay, it's not just roofs. There are a number of things. It's one of the reasons that one escape hatch that I suggested was that, I mean, again, whether you limit it to 2 a year or even 1 a year, that you make an exception for people who are trying to come into compliance as a result of village enforcement activity. These are not people who are even seeking relief. They're not looking to do something. They're not people who are looking to put in a pool or something.
Can I have examples of those low-income people?
I don't
that-
mean to interrupt, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but for the benefit of the public, they do not have access to any of the discussion you guys are having right now.
Okay.
So this was not advertised. They don't have the documents that you guys have. If they want to have an opinion, they're not properly noted or it hasn't been advertised. And just like the attorney says, I know that the staff, we can't just put, our opinions on the table. I'm just trying to say that we work on the benefit of the public. That's why I have to advertise it. It was not sent to me by the proper protocol. So at this point, we're having the discussion. You guys are having the discussion, but the benefit of the public, they do not have the documentation.
Okay. So I'll probably, after the vice mayor speaks, like, ask to table it, but.
Okay. It's a good segue. So first of all, I love that we actually have something to look at based on something that we thought was worthwhile for the last meeting. So I think this is a great first step. I would love to do the first step in a less public forum. I feel like getting that information and probably sitting with it for a little longer. I like to sit with things and also look around at other municipalities, see how they're doing things, and really have an opportunity to sit with it. So yeah, to your point, I think this would be great to have that opportunity.
And I was the staff member who suggested that.
I was
Yeah.
just getting ready to jump in, but I'll let
Yes.
Madam Vice Mayor finish up.
And then in addition to having an opportunity to sit with it, I would also like some analysis of the impact. So some of this, we're kind of treating it as, well, we just have to kind of see what happens, but there's a way where we can try to predict based on how many low-income families, I think how many low-income families reside in the area. Maybe there's a metric that we can look at there. Maybe we can look at maybe enumerating certain types of health, life, and safety variances to enumerate out that qualify for this, this exemption. All of those things I would love for staff to kind of crunch those numbers and finesse them so that we can really have an impact, an idea of the impacts, both intended and unintended, that might come from us passing this today. And as far as just the ordinance itself, I completely understand what the mayor is saying as far as just some more detail would be nice. Some of us are very savvy and we can just kind of look at the ordinance and kind of know, hey, let me go to the clerk. The next step is to figure this out. But for those who are not and kind of in a bind, I could see them wanting to look at the documents and say, oh, okay, low income requirement as to whom? I would love to see that. Low income requirement of Miami-Dade County or whatever. So there is a specific thing that they can look at and say, hey, do I qualify? Is that me? Before they start spinning their wheels. Would love to have that added into the document. Maybe the who do I go to get more information, or to actually submit this application, or that it is an application. So some of those things I would love fleshed out in the actual variance, just for ease of understanding for the residents and the users. So I do love that I have it in front of me, would love to have some more specificity as to whose low-income requirement this is actually
Directed.
governed by.
Well, that's the paragraph on the second page, though. It's Miami-Dade County, average median income. That's
Okay,
the standard.
okay. I don't see it, but,
At the bottom of the
Section 2.
appendix, page 2, if you have the appendix,
oh, it's in the, okay, so it's in the appendix, and the
Yeah.
appendix will go with the.
that's a
Ordinance.
part of the ordinance, and it specifies there
Okay.
that what we're talking, not everything you've said.
Okay.
but what it is that it's a reference to. It does say that it's, it's based on Miami-Dade County average
Mm-hmm.
median income, and AMI is a very accepted term in low-income housing.
I definitely see it. Is there any reason to not put it in the variance, in the actual ordinance? Is there a reason not to?
No, we can definitely add that into the ordinance, yeah, I would do that for sure.
I just know sometimes, you lose me in the asterisk. Like, if it's just like there and in the whereas clauses, you kind of know, this is, I qualify,
Okay.
And then I also would love to know if there is a metric that we can look to determine how many households we
Okay, yes,
think.
we can probably get that from the census.
That would be-
We'll
yeah.
grab that
That would be
information.
great. So then if we have that information, we kind of know the world as to what it is we're looking at when we're talking about maybe some of the fiscal impacts that may result from this. So I would love to have a more detailed, just slightly more detailed ordinance. I would love to have a separate analysis of the fees and how it may or may not impact the village and whatever concerns are present from the manager or from the attorney. I would love to have those two additional pieces of information, and I would love to have it outside of a planning and zoning or a council meeting, just so that I can visually look at it, reflect on it, ask supplemental questions, and not bore the audience with my questions about something that I think we're still kind of in the sausage-making stage. So thank you for the document, and I look forward to getting the supplemental information and continuing along this course, because I do think that we're not looking for a problem. I think this problem exists. We do have a lot of families in El Portal that, are experiencing financial hardships. I think people in general in Miami-Dade County are feeling it. It is a difficult time for a lot of folks. And even if you live in an area that has, higher median incomes or property values, sometimes it makes it even harder if you are experiencing a financial hardship. So I think these families exist. I care about them. I want to make sure that they're able to cure whatever issues may be existing on their property. I think this is a worthwhile thing for us to do. I don't think this means that we should pull our foot off the gas. I think we should continue to go, go, go. I think we just need to reset and regroup as to how we go. So I appreciate the work.
Let me just ask, Vice Mayor, just so we're able to comply, because again, this is what council asked to see. So we shouldn't necessarily bring it back to the very next P and Z meeting. You've asked that some things happen before it comes back to, and gets agended for another P and Z meeting.
Yeah, I do. I want to see a real staff report. So I want there to be an actual written document that has been emailed to me that has whatever those impacts might be, just written out. I would also like to see another draft of the ordinance that includes a little bit more of the how, right? And excludes some more specificity on the who. So just that low income requirement as it relates to Miami-Dade, whatever it is, I know you know how to jazz it up and make it look good. And in addition to that, some of the how. Who do they go to, based on what Ms. Hammonds was explaining? Whom do they submit this application to, that it is an application? Just a little bit of that would be great.
So let me just suggest then that while we do the specifics that you requested, we would say that when any member of the committee, which is, as we know, means any member of the council, is ready to actually move forward with the information we've given you, I would say that if anyone requests that it be reset onto a P and Z agenda, just tell the clerk that, you know, you feel that whoever it is, that you're ready to see this come back to a P and Z meeting with appropriate advertising and with the benefit of whatever information we've been able to provide to all of you in the meantime, and that way, the question of when it comes back is controlled by any one of you.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with that because I know for sure I'm willing to see it back at the next P&Z meeting. But in just going along those lines, I do want to set a deadline by which we can expect to receive that staff report.
I just have to point out to you, not that it's mostly me doing it.
Mhm.
I'm not so deeply involved in budget, but the information that you're requesting, if I can speak up on behalf of our beleaguered manager, the information you're requesting may be a little harder to compile while she's right in the middle of preparing the budget and getting that in front of you for the budget hearings, the preliminary, tentative millage, preliminary millage, and all of that. I mean,
So how
you can
about we?
say she's ready to go, but.
How about we bifurcate it? How about we bifurcate it? Can I see a new ordinance
Yes.
with the updated specificity within the next 2 weeks?
I'd say by the next meeting, if that
By
would.
the next meeting, when is the next meeting? Can I ask?
I don't mean P and Z, by the next council meeting.
Council meeting, when is the next council meeting? I operate in 24-hour
July.
installments.
Second.
July 22nd, perfect. So can we see a new draft of the ordinance
Yes.
by July 22nd? That's
ma'am.
perfect. So now we've separated out that issue. And now I'll ask the manager, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time within which you could have that information to us? Because I guess the impacts, we definitely want to consider it, but I guess you can give that to us a little bit later than the actual
No, I could
ordinance.
give you that a little bit sooner.
Sooner,
I mean, I
okay.
just told you what the hourly rate is, and Ms. Hammonds has different prescribed times per variance.
Okay.
So like a garage conversion is 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours, you told me.
Okay, perfect.
So that would be outlined. Now, in terms of getting what other municipalities are doing, I mean, I can put out a message to the other managers to ask if they have that, but this doesn't take. I
That
can
would
have
be
it by the
great.
meeting.
She's
That-
the
But-
president, they gotta listen to her.
I know, Madam President.
Thank you.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very
Um,
much. But I can get that. I don't have a specific date, but just know I usually work pretty fast when I'm. wanting to do
Perfect.
something.
So how about we anticipate, as a council, both of those bits of information by the next council meeting, which is on July 22nd. July 22nd. That would be great. And also, Ms. Hammonds, I know that you know how to find like the number of low-income households that are in the Village of El Portal. If you could include that information, that would be something that I would think would be very important in my analysis of the situation.
I actually don't think we have to bifurcate it. I think this is doable by the next meeting.
Perfect.
But
That is
would
so
you
good to
want it
hear.
to just be a discussion item at that meeting? Because it does need to, per the process, it needs to go to P and Z for vote before we move it to.
So let me,
Council.
Madam
Does-
Vice
Oh, okay.
Chair, if I
There you
can.
go.
All right, so let's just go through this real quick, you guys. So the way this happened was this. So we had a meeting to prepare for this P and Z meeting. So I always have agenda preparation meetings, right? And we go and we'll have a Zoom meeting to prepare for the agenda. And what's on the agenda, what's going to be on the agenda. All right, so myself and I'm the chair of P and Z. And I'm the mayor for the council meetings. I'm the mayor for this. I'm the chair of P and Z. Myself and the clerk, we get together and she'll be like, look, mayor, these are your things, or look, chair, these are the things that are coming up. These are your items. So we had that meeting for the two P and Z items. At that meeting, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Madam Clerk, they said, hey, well, we have an ordinance too. So me and the clerk were like, I haven't heard of this. So they're like, oh, no, we have this. I'm like, well, I haven't even seen it or heard of it. So then they're like, oh, and Ms. Hammonds was like, oh, I'll send it to you after our meeting's over. The clerk said it would be better if we just email all the members and let them have time to look over it. I said, yeah. I said, because we've already gone to put out that the P&Z meeting starts at 6:30, which leads me to apologize for you guys because it's 7:45 and we haven't even started the council meeting. I said, yeah. I said, because we already went out and we have two items for the P&Z meeting. This discussion will be hours, we said. So it shouldn't be on this meeting. It's not ready. That's exactly what I said. We don't have all the information, it's not ready, and we only scheduled the P&Z for 30 minutes. We have 2 items. And that's how it was. And I even said to Manager Lou, I said, Madam Manager, this is not even ready yet. We don't even have all the details we need yet. So I apologize for you guys for sitting here at 7:46 and the council meeting hasn't started. But myself and the clerk were adamant so that this right here wouldn't happen. Anybody else from the committee?
I think it's a good thing. I mean, I guess it's not a great thing, and no one wants to be here 45 minutes extra, but I do think that we did some things and moved this along. So
No, for
hopefully
sure.
by the next council meeting, we'll just be closer to the end result. So if we can get that information by the 22nd of July, that would be awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you, Madam Vice Chair, but that's the reason why myself and the clerk said, you guys just send it out to each individual member and let them have time to look over it.
Yeah, so thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing all that out. You really clarified it. I do think I want to ask a question, Mr. Mayor. Should we talk about that, now that this is going to be voted to be tabled or not, and we're going to have to go to the next meeting, do we talk about the resident during this meeting or the next meeting? Because we need to find a solution, because if we wait till July to get the ordinance, and then it passes P&Z in July, August we're off, then September is the next time we pass. Hurricane season is basically in the middle, if not towards the end, for this current resident. Do we want to talk about it now or next council meeting?
Yeah, so as far as talking about what we might be able to do, we can talk about that at the council meeting during the good and welfare
Okay.
portion, the second good and welfare portion. Right now, this is not on the agenda, right? So this is just discussion. So right now, everybody's going to take it back, look over it, you know, like our great Madam Vice Mayor and Vice Chair said, look over it, and then we'll come back. And anybody up here can contact anybody here with any questions that they have to prepare. So when we come to the meeting, things are more streamlined. And that's the way I think it should be. And so that's the way it has happened. Myself and the clerk, we even said, because this P&Z was supposed to be for those 2 agenda items, I said, myself and the clerk was like, yeah, for this, we should have a whole separate P&Z.
There you go.
But we weren't listened to. So I apologize for you guys sitting here. Anyone else from the committee? All right, hearing none. Do I have anybody for good and welfare? We're going to go into the next meeting also. There's good and welfare is there. This is the P&Z committee. But do I have anybody for good and welfare? Okay, hearing, seeing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Member Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing none. The Planning and Zoning Committee meeting for June 24th, 2025 is adjourned at 7:49 p.m.